Strategies for lowering your grocery budget using supermarket markdowns. Coming up next. Grocery budgets can quickly get out of control. And today we're going to share with you some strategies that we have used to bring our grocery budget back into control. Hi, I'm Hope.
And I'm Larry.
From Under the Median. If you're unfamiliar with us, we raised our 4 sons debt-free on an income which was consistently under the national U.S. average income. So we just had this conversation between the two of us last week where we realized that our grocery budget last year was it was crazy. In fact, it was crazier than we knew it was until we added up everything up. And so we have decided that this year we are going to do what we need to do to get it back into control. And one of the ways we're going to do that is by making extensive use of something called supermarket markdowns. So we're just going to give you an idea of what supermarket markdowns are. Then we're going to show you a recent grocery haul that I got last week of all markdowns from Kroger. My son Daniel, our 16-year-old, who actually helps me cook every single week, is going to come on camera with me, and we're going to give you 7 strategies that we use every single week to stretch our grocery budget using supermarket markdowns. Larry, what are markdowns? For people who are confused and are like, what are supermarket markdowns?
Well, markdowns are usually items that are getting ready to expire. They might be expiring in, say, 48 hours. Mm-hmm. So a grocery store will slash the retail price down by, sometimes 50%?
50%, sometimes more, sometimes even 75%. It kind of depends on the grocery store, and it depends on their policies and how close it is to that sell-by date.
If you talk to some of the salespeople who stock that area, they can tell you about when they will mark these items down, so you can get an idea of what's the best time to go into that store. Some stores mark items down better than others. We've discovered within a certain chain, well, we'll just mention it, Kroger, in our city, one store in a location will mark down items a little better than others. So we've kind of honed ourselves in on that store. So we like to go in. Usually these items are placed in front of the other items that are not ready to expire, and they'll have a large tag on them. In case of Kroger, they're yellow, you can't miss them. And it'll say marked down by the manager. So that's how you can identify these.
Now, the other question that we frequently get is, if they are discounting the price of this food, isn't it like bad? Hasn't it gone rancid? There's something wrong with it. We immediately think there's got to be something wrong with that they've got that big yellow tag on it saying it's discounted. Are markdowns bad food?
No, they're not bad. They're getting ready to expire. Generally, they've got maybe as much as a week left on them, depending on the item, of course. Generally, you can look inside. They're in a cellophane bag, and you can look and see what the condition of. If it's spinach, you can tell whether it looks dark colored or kind of liquidy. If that's the case, of course, pass that one by. But we have found that most of the markdowns are okay, and they hold up very well for us as we get ready to eat those.
So we're going to bring Daniel on. We're going to give you 7 strategies that we use each week in our menu planning process. Then, when we're done, don't leave us, because we're going to show you photos of the exact meals that we made for our family using those supermarket markdowns.
And I must say, we've already eaten most of those items, and they were really good. Did a great job with it.
Hello.
Everybody, this is my son Daniel. He's 16 years old, and he is an amazing sous chef. We thought it would be really fun for us to go through our top 7 tips, strategies that you can use to lower your own grocery budget. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the markdowns from Kroger that we scored this week, and we have challenged ourselves to come up with a menu plan that uses all of these items. Kroger is known for their amazing markdown deals. And in fact, I did a video just a few months ago that gave you my top 5 tips and strategies for shopping at Kroger and saving money. I'll link that up above, and I'll also link it in the description of this video. Now, before we go into the tips, Daniel, let's show them what we got. All right. Let's start with this. And we have,
2 bags of romaine lettuce.
all right, there are 3 in each bag, and you'll see that they were priced at 99 cents per bag.
We have a whole ton of sugar snap peas.
There's actually a story behind this. It's not in the original packaging because my son Philip, my youngest son, loves sugar snap peas. So the minute that baby hit the house, he opened the sugar snap peas and started eating them. So that's why they're in a bowl. But so here's the original packaging. It was 2 pounds for $1.99. Okay.
We have 3 containers of portobello mushrooms with 2 each, so 6 portobello mushrooms.
All right. All right. So we'll move those out of the way. And the last thing on the table is
2 bags of vegetable medley.
okay. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about each of the ingredients and give you some tips and strategies using these ingredients. The first thing that you need to do when you're planning a menu and you have some fresh ingredients that you want to make sure that you use is make sure that you have an accurate inventory. So Daniel's going to show you this sheet here. This is our fresh food inventory. Daniel, why don't you explain to them what that is and how we use it?
This is all of the food that is very close to expiring, so it needs to be used up first, as opposed to stuff that would be frozen or canned that has months to like a year of shelf life.
Right. So every week before we begin our menu planning, we just go through the house and we inventory what do we have that is fresh. So we look in the refrigerator and we also look on the countertops to see what we have there. Mainly, of course, this is going to be fruits and vegetables. And we make a list, and that becomes our list that we are working off of to try to use those items up first. And that becomes the primary backbone for our menu plan. Now, the next thing that we do might seem kind of odd to you, and that is we actually physically count the ingredients. Why do we do that?
So that we know the quantity that we have. That way we're not creating too many recipes with that ingredient.
Right, because then we're going to run out. Halfway through cooking, we're going to run out of an ingredient, which means either we have to come up with a really brilliant, quick substitution of something we do have in the house, or we need to run to the grocery store, which we don't want to do. Because
the last thing you want to do on cold days like this is to run out in the middle of cooking to get an ingredient that you forgot about.
That's right. And you're also going to pay full price because nearly everything that we use for our cooking, we have bought at a reduced cost. So make sure that you count them. So we know, for instance, that how many potatoes. Now, in this case, we have like 20 pounds of potatoes on hand. So we did not go through and count every single potato. But we know that we've got 20 pounds of potatoes we can use. But sometimes, we count onions and we count celery. We know we have like 12 celery stalks. We have 8 carrots. So we know for certain how much of each item we have because we don't want to use too many recipes that have that ingredient and then run out halfway through. The third thing that we do is what?
We prioritize the use of items with a short shelf life.
Okay, so give them an example, Daniel, of the way that we would prioritize. We're going to use this first, this second, and then this third. How do we figure that out?
So compare the portobello mushrooms to potatoes. Portobello mushrooms have an infamously short life, and potatoes can last 4 to 6 weeks at the least. So you're obviously going to want to try to use the mushrooms before you use the potatoes.
Excellent. And then we do exactly the same thing with fruit. When we inventory our fruit, we're going to say, oh, look, we have some bananas. Bananas, one day they're good, and the next day
Definitely not.
they're not. And so we're going to prioritize if those bananas have been sitting there 3 or 4 days, and we both are very well aware of what items are in the house and how long they've been there. We're going to brainstorm what are we going to do with these bananas before they go bad. So the whole idea is that we want to use the food before it goes bad. Americans actually statistically throw out, believe it or not, hold on to your hats, 40% of the food we buy.
Whoa.
And so our family years ago decided that that was just not a statistic we wanted to be a part of. We actually have a written family food pledge that says we will waste no more than 3% of the food that comes into our home. Not only is that important to us environmentally, but it's important to us as a family because that helps us save the most amount of money possible. Because whenever you throw food out in the garbage, it's just like waving your $10 or $20 or $50 bill and throwing it in the garbage with that food. Because that food cost you money. That's what it represents. All right, so the next thing we want to tell them is to use their freezer. Whenever you're menu planning, bear in mind that you have this magic thing in your kitchen called a freezer. So what that allows you to do is go ahead and cook like a double batch of something. And then freeze half of it. There are many, many things that actually freeze exceptionally well. And we do have a video here on the channel that tells you how to organize your freezer. And I give you an idea in that video of exactly what things freeze well and which things really, really don't freeze that well. So I'll link it once again above and in the comment section of this video, or in the description of this video, I'll put it there. All right, strategy number 6. Strategy 6 is...
Don't be afraid of substitutions.
That's all right. If you have a recipe and you really like it and it calls for broccoli, but you have cauliflower on hand, most of the time, broccoli substitutes pretty well for cauliflower. Now, clearly, there are some things that don't substitute well, but they're an amazing array of foods that you can substitute in that recipe. We call recipes kind of a list of
suggestions.
That's what we call recipes all the time. Oh, look, it's a list of suggestions. So although, if it's got soy sauce in it, we're probably going to put the same amount of soy sauce, but we might substitute green beans instead of broccoli, or we might substitute peaches instead of pears. So if there's something in your house that is a substitution and it makes sense, don't be afraid to use it, because that's your goal, is to use what you have in the house. And our final and 7th strategy, before we show you exactly what we do to menu plan using all of these ingredients and come up with 7 main dishes that will last our family for an entire week, is...
Keep it simple.
That's right. K-I-S-S. Keep it super simple. You do not have to serve a 5-course meal every time your family sits down at the table. Now, Daniel and I actually notoriously do a couple of 5-course meals every year. On Christmas Eve, we do a candlelight 5-course meal, and we cook it up to the hilt. We plan it for weeks in advance. But believe me, you don't have the time or energy to be doing that every single night of the week. So the whole idea is to use what you have on hand, get those main dishes all figured out, and then the side dishes kind of fall into place throughout the week. But you will always know when you walk in the door at 5 o'clock and you want to avoid that 5 o'clock hurry up, get in the kitchen, and then totally panic moment. This is what you want to do, is you want to have these main dishes all planned out and as much as possible cooked in advance. All right, let's take a look at the first thing that we do when we are planning a menu. The first thing that we do after we have a complete inventory of our fresh foods is to begin to think of these foods in terms of their parts. So in this example, we have this amazing vegetable medley. We have 4 pounds of it. It was marked down to $1.99. Most of the time, I tell you never to bother with buying food that has already been prepped for you, because it is so much more expensive than buying the whole food. But in this case, when it's marked down to $1.99, it is well worth it in order to have the convenience. But the problem is there's 3 kinds of vegetables in here, and your brain goes into information overload when you see all of those ingredients shoved in one bag. So we are physically going to cut these bags open, and we're going to divide them into each of these 3 bowls. We'll have a bowl for carrots, a bowl for broccoli, and a bowl for cauliflower. Okay, ready? That's a lot of vegetables. Okay, ready?
Yep.
Here we go.
So they kind of gypped us on the cauliflower, huh?
Holy God cow, there's not much cauliflower there.
Here's the finished product of our distribution.
So now this makes it so much easier to see exactly what we have, rather than 4 pounds of mixed vegetables that are sitting in a couple of bags. I will say that the one thing we discovered as we were going through is we had a whole lot of
Broccoli.
and not a whole lot of
Cauliflower.
So, so my plans maybe have to be altered just a little bit. What this really is important for is the fact that we are going to come up with a list of recipes, and we now know that these can be treated as individual ingredients rather than one ingredient. the final thing that we do before we put the finalized menu plan together is look at this sheet where we have written down all of our ideas, and we make sure that we haven't inadvertently overused any one ingredient, because there's a limited amount of these ingredients, so we can't use them, say, in 2 or 3 recipes. There's only enough for a certain amount of recipes. So we sort of use that criteria to then call the list down to the 7 main dishes that we are going to make this week. Now, as we make the dishes, we are going to film it, and we're going to show you the finished dishes so you'll know what our final decisions were. And that's everything that we made to feed our family for an entire week using our $12 of massive markdowns that we got from Kroger this week. We hope that you have enjoyed it. Just a reminder, if you want any of the recipes and links for those recipes are found on the companion piece to this video, and it's located on the website. You will find a link to that blog post in the description of this video.